We saw a little softness in the market today with rejection just below the 6100 level on the S&P 500, S&P closing at 60.75. And so we had this rejection here right around midday with the selling pressure coming in and closing essentially on the lows. We do have this gap left over from the market open yesterday, and we also have another gap, very small, right around the 6,000 level. So those are a couple of major levels that we're looking at, including the zero gamma level, which is just below the 60.50 level here. If you recall, in yesterday's video, we highlighted the 6100 strike having the largest gamma exposure concentration. That continues to be the case. That's also the largest strike price with the most options volume today, with over 200,000 contracts traded at the 6100 level. Zooming out just a little bit, we do see continued gamma exposure growing at the 6200 strike, so that is something we are continuing to keep our eye on. But for now, our upper dealer cluster zone is between 6100 and just above the 6150 level, and this is going to be an area of contention in the market where dealers are primarily concentrated. So as long as the GEX structure stays as is, we're going to see dealer selling pressure, dealers selling S&P futures as price comes above the 6100 level. And so we'll have to see how the market reacts tomorrow. If we approach that level again, we've got the jobs report in the morning. And so we could see some volatility at the market open, either to the upside or the downside, depending on how the jobs report goes.
Yeah, thanks for that analysis, Anthony. I wanted to point out on SPX's 3D chart, which is where we can see all of the gamma clusters laid out over time. We have 6100 as the largest cluster for tomorrow. I know you just talked about that 6100 level. And it's very large in comparison to other gamma clusters. I mean, we have today, which of course expired. The next biggest one after this 6100 at December 6th is 6055 at December 31. I know we've discussed the S&P being above the top Keltner channel, and we also have discussed a number of days where we have seen VIX and VVIX diverging. Whenever we see negative correlation between the VIX and VVIX, we found that stringing several days in a row together of that divergence can be a good forecasting tool for a future VIX spike. It doesn't give us an exact time frame or degree of the spike. We just noticed that the VIX does tend to spike after several days back to back of negative correlation. So interestingly, VVIX has kind of quietly, after 7 days, has quietly regained this whole moving average, which is an indicator I like to use. And we can go to VIX briefly, and I'll show you the same. VIX actually had a green candle today, and it also closed above the whole. So this is the first day in 7 days that either VVIX or VIX has closed above the whole moving average, which is a bullish signal in my view. And it just might mean that if we can tag that 6100 strike tomorrow with the S&P, we at least have a number of things that would point to the possibility of a pullback pretty soon.
Yeah, we definitely need to watch that negative correlation. Thanks, Sean. Next, I want to take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, we topped out at over 100,000 today, but look where we are now, having some pretty big weakness back down to 93,000. And if you've been watching our videos for the last several days, you probably recall us highlighting this upper dealer cluster zone, which is the 100,000 strike. Obviously, that's the big level that everybody was focused on, but it was very clear in the options market as well that that was the target of market participants with the large gamma exposure at that level. And what do we see? We had a big spike above that level this morning. Dealer selling pressure kicking in here immediately, and dealer selling pressure very prominent as we peaked above this dealer cluster zone. And so bringing price all the way back down, I wouldn't be surprised to see price make it back to this lower dealer cluster zone. This was an area of contention over the last month. Mid-November, we were bouncing up and down all through this level before finally breaking out. We missed the 100,000 strike by just a hair, came all the way back down to this 92,000 level, all the way back down right before Thanksgiving. And of course, we had the big bounce above, finally breaking 100K. And now we seem to be, making our way back down to this level. So trading here, 93,000, it's been very volatile, especially over the last couple of hours, as I mentioned. So it wouldn't be surprising to see, an overnight tag at least. Somewhere between 90 and 92,000. We're going to be watching this, of course, very closely into tomorrow and into the weekend.
It's been a while since we've talked about BABA, and so I pulled up BABA, wanted to go over a couple of things that are of interest to me. First off, since 2024 started, it's had a fairly bullish pattern. I mean, you can see we've consistently made higher lows and higher highs. We do have a couple of parabolic tops here. This was kind of a mini parabola that marked the end of that phase of this rally, and then another really big one that went up into October. And so I know, we kind of had I call it the tweezers. We came back down and erased a lot of that parabola. And we're basically right at this whole moving average now. Of course, the Keltners have been following the price. And while I do look at the Keltners for an indication of what I might expect going forward, they will lag in turning sometimes. So the fact that we're at the lower channel is what I'm most focused on right now. We're above the hole. Right at the hole, and we're basically at that lower Keltner channel. But let's take a quick look at the gamma picture. BABA has a positive gamma, and of course, the biggest strike that we see is at 100. We've got that 100 strike. Lots of volume at these higher strikes. We had the highest volume at 90. It's notable volume at 100. We could even scroll up here and look at this at 115, 120. I'm not saying I think this stock's going to go to 115 or 120, but there is zero interest, at least in the options market, in any of these lower strikes. So BABA, potentially bullish. We have big gamma at 100.
Yeah, BABA is definitely a beaten down name to watch. Next, I would just want to take a look at Meta. We've talked about this a number of times over the last several weeks, pointing out the big 600 strike, the large gamma exposure that was sitting there all the way back when we were trading in this lower dealer cluster zone. We finally broke out right around Thanksgiving, and it's been a rocket ship right through our upper dealer cluster zone to the upside. Today, we saw big volume coming in at the 620 level. We nearly tagged that level and rejected. Not surprising since we are above our upper dealer cluster zone. And while we think Meta still looks good long term, we may have a little bit of contention between 600 and 620. And so wouldn't be surprising to see some consolidation, maybe even a pullback. I know Sean was mentioning this in one of our previous videos, a pullback to 600. And that may have started in yesterday's trading session. So we'll be watching that for sure. If we just look up further up the options chain, we're seeing some positive gamma exposure at higher strikes. It's still fairly muted though, above 620. I think any move above 620 is going to see selling pressure. My base case is that we're likely to hit 600 before we shoot above 620. So that's something we'll be watching. We are trading Meta in our community Discord. I'll put a link down in the description below for you guys to check that out. It's free to check out, and we also have premium channels for our members. If you're interested in becoming a member, check out geeksoffinance.com. I'll put a link in the description below for that as well. And you can get access to our gamma exposure dashboard and our option flow analytics tools. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.